Hi there, it's Luke again with Back Hills Troubleshooting, as I'm liking the idea to call this show. Today, I'd like to just talk a little bit about RF circuits and RF equipment. Um, this is a Hallicrafters model S38. I have had this particular unit since I was probably 10 years old. Um, it's missing a knob here, but actually I believe it still turns on, although it has a problem where the audio begins to just be drowned out after a certain amount of time by 60 hertz. You can still hear some radio traffic on different frequencies, but I have no idea how aligned this thing is anymore. Let's see, one of the points I wanted to make about this radio, because I'm working in RF now for my career, is that RF circuits, especially the way that they were traditionally constructed, um, they use the usual components. You've got these are variable capacitors here. They're used for dialing in capacitance, probably as part of a tuning operation. Here's some more of those. There's one here. There's one. There's one here. Not necessarily sure what those do, but one of the guys I work with made an interesting point. Somebody had brought in an old radio, wondering if one of us guys could fix it in the RF lab, and of course, the guys who've been there for a while know better than to take on a project like that for free. So I fell for it, and I helped the guy get it booted up, and we found out that it was a bad tube. And one of the guys I work with, though, took a quick look at it, and he said, if you're ever looking inside of an old radio like this, be sure not to move anything. Um, like this wire, if you think it doesn't look right there, don't just fold it back into a corner. Don't try to straighten out these wires. God forbid you unsolder the wires and try to make them neater or use different length of wires. If you do that, you're almost certainly going to totally throw off the alignment of the radio. And it may not work. It may work poorly, maybe off frequency, may create interference. So that's one of those things that people who've been doing RF probably learned from the School of Hard Knocks. And I'm glad that I'm not going to have to learn it that way. Although this survived me being a child, and I probably moved a bunch of stuff around without realizing it. So this is this is almost certainly not the original configuration. You can even see some of these really crusty um, electrolytics that somebody put in there. That was before I got it even. Um, and these caps are pretty old. You get the fraying insulation there. Um, yeah, there's another one of those caps. That's a fairly modern cap right there that somebody put in. Um, Last I checked, this unit was. Another thing you can see is on these coils here, like this is a coil under these variable caps, it's all held together with pine pitch or wax. So when they actually wound it and tuned it up, they dump hot wax on it so it would freeze everything in one position. That goes along with how everything is sort of strategically located. And probably when they were lining this, the guy just had to go with one of the wires, and it was perfectly on frequency, and he just left it there. And that's how a lot of these RF things go. Sometimes is you have to have somebody manually tune them, and it ends up being, either if it's not turning one of these variable capacitors, it's moving one of the windings out of the way on this, or adding a little extra wire, or moving a cap, or moving a resistor or something. And it's always tricky with RF, and you gotta align these the right way. So one of the shows I'll do is going to be aligning this guy and replacing all the crusty caps and all the other crusty parts. Um, so stay tuned. I'll just get pictures in back here for other folks. It's upside down, but this is the antenna connections, old school headphone connections, crusty old power cable. Really should, if you ever get one of these, be very careful. The S38 and a lot of other radios from that time were what are called hot chassis, where they didn't have keyed outlet receptacles, so you could plug in the radio backwards and it would still be powered, but then the chassis, the metal frame of the thing, would be electrified with whatever the line voltage was. In this case, 120 volts. And I've been shocked by this before, and when I was younger, I did not know that was why. So be very careful if you ever try to plug one of these in, that you don't get zapped. I never got really hurt, but it was definitely noticeable, and I thought there was something wrong with the radio, but nope, that's in fact, it can run that way, or with a neutral chassis, which is the preferred method. So yeah, just quick look in here, the tubes. You can see when I turn the tuning, you can see one of the big bread slicer varicaps in there. It's got a nice off-centered motion. The other one here is the finer tuning. They're kind of crusty now. This is probably some kind of inductor or some kind of a enclosed tuning element. Probably an inductor, if I had to guess. This is an old, really crusty metal tube. And these are just various, glass tubes. You can still see, one of the things with tubes is if you can see into them, this shiny metal here, it's called the getter, and that's actually in there to collect any gas that's inside of the tube. So any gas in the tube will react with this metal and be captured as a solid, and it keeps the vacuum in there really, really hard. So that's just about it. I can go over a couple of the controls on the front maybe, and what I know of them. This was obviously some kind of a communications receiver because you could hit it to receive, or if you wanted to transmit, you could hit it into standby, I imagine. I imagine this is so that if you were transmitting, you wouldn't blow the thing up. And this was just to receive, although if I'm not right about that, this was just so that you would keep the tubes warm, but you wouldn't get any audio. But of course, you could just turn the volume all the way down if you wanted that. So I think it was more for the sake of if you were transmitting. Back in the day, they didn't have transceivers. You had a transmitter and a receiver, and you had to switch between those two with your antenna. A lot of times with like a real switch, and then later relays, and now they're just all done solid state. Switch between the speaker of the phone, AM or CW. CW adds a side tone so you can pick up Morse code. Some noise limiting thing. I'm sure that really is just very crude compared to nowadays. I don't really know what it does. I'd have to look up what that circuit's actually doing. And then this is the CW pitch. This goes along with the CW position right here. And I never really played with this, but the knob's obviously missing. But you would turn this to get a different frequency offset from the center frequency to listen to Morse code. Sometimes a higher, lower frequency when you're listening to Morse code really helps you to pick it out of the noise. This selects the band. You can see, there's little lines going up to point to where it is on this knob. And this really beautiful display actually shows the frequency, and then you can see very carefully, you can see some of the band names they had. There's an amateur band right there, another amateur band, another amateur band. There's a few overlaps. It says foreign on there for, I guess, foreign broadcast, more amateur. Yeah, and so this was how they built radios back in the day. It says megacycles. Excuse me. So, yeah, from about 30 down to half a megahertz for AM broadcast. And then this is just kind of like whatever your frequency is over here is really just a rough idea of where you are, and then this would be, what percentage of the bandwidth you are, which is a little bit hokey, but I'm sure this actually allowed you to get very precise. So if you were, told that you were supposed to be on 9.5 megahertz and you got there and you didn't hear anybody, you could kind of do this without messing with this too much, and maybe get a little bit closer where you need to be, or figure out what direction. So if you move this way and you heard them a little bit better, you move it this way and then back this way towards the center and actually pick up. So that's about it, volume knob. And I just wanted to show this because I thought it was interesting and helpful for anybody who's doing RF stuff or electronics in general to know. Don't ever change the way somebody set it up out of the factory, because they might have done it for a really good reason. All right, thanks for watching Back Hills Troubleshooting. I'm Luke, and we'll catch you next time.